Piki, piki, ponki, pakamielo disco.
Had the IBC not disqualified Safina Party's presidential candidate Jimmy Wanjigi, lawyer Willis Otieno would have been on the ballot as his running mate. The electoral agency found that Mr. Wanjigi's application had not met the required minimum number of supporters, where it fell short by one county. The young lawyer, who has a decorated legal professional history and background, walked the nation through his journey in the legal profession, politics, Supreme Court battle and judgment during the hearing of the presidential petition, and his future at the Safina Party. Willis, thank you so much for having us, welcoming us to this nice place.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Okay, so we are here today we just want to get to know more about Willis. Checking or going through your profile online, I was surprised to find that you're still a young man with gray beard.
I'm moving away from the youth bracket very fast.
Just moving.
Moving away.
Yes.
Yes.
So, and given the last few months, our political arena in Kenya saw you get involved with Jimmy Wanjigi, and also the court battle. We saw you are one of those who spoke so vehemently. So we just want to know who Willis Otieno is. So
Willis Otieno is a God-fearing, humble man from Siaya County. Come from a family of 6, an alumnus of Moi University, Malira High School, Kibuye Mixed Primary School in Kisumu. So I'm a town boy by Kisumu standards.
Okay.
So mtu wa mtaa, I grew up in the mtaa.
Okay.
I grew up in a railway estate in Kisumu. My father was a railway worker. So growing up back in the day, in the vicinity of the railways, and just seeing locomotives move around and playing with the local boys, local football. I was not the best in football per se, but my combination was the best. I was a very good dribbler and passer, okay, but not very good at scoring. Yes.
So is it true that you were born in 1984?
No, I'm born in 1982.
Okay.
I'm born in 1982.
Okay.
I was born in Kisumu, Russia Hospital. That's where I spent my early years. I stayed in Kisumu from the time I was born up to 1995, when now I moved back to Alego. That's where my village is. And I did my secondary education in Game constituency, Malira High School, as I said. After which I proceeded to Moi University, studied my bachelor in law degree. Upon that, I went to Kenya School of Law for postgraduate diploma in law. I pupilled at Oraro and Company Advocates with George Oraro himself, under the tutelage of Oraro, Chacha, and the late John Ougo and Pamela Gale. They, in a way, shaped my inceptive view of the practice of law. Then after that, I worked at the International Commission of Jurists, yes, ICJ, with George Kegoro, who was the executive director. Or I should say this, before I went to ICJ, I interned also at the Parliament of Kenya. That was in 2008 when the Office of the Prime Minister was established. I was the first cohort of the State University of New York fellows who were taken as junior fellows attached to Parliament, and I was attached specifically to the parliamentary office of the Prime Minister, Raila Odinga. We were working under Mr. Kip Kirui. After which I joined ICJ. From ICJ, I worked at Transparent International with Samuel Kipila, the executive director. From TI, I went to an African organization that supports election and election processes. It has a long name called Electoral Institute for the Sustainability of Democracy in Africa, abbreviated as ASA. It's based in South Africa, but with field offices in all regions of Africa. During my stint in ASA, the bulk of the work we were doing was supporting election observer missions. Specifically, we were providing technical support to all the AU observer missions in all elections in the continent. So a team will be sent to provide technical support to all the AU observers. Partly that is where I can say I honed my practical skills on electoral processes. I had been interested in elections way back even at the university. In my undergraduate, I did my dissertation on what we call mixed member proportional representation, which is a model of electoral system that requires that the composition of parliament should capture both the geographical seats and what we call the non-geographical seats. That is to say, some members are elected based on party lists. The mixed member proportional representation is very important, and in developed countries like Germany, that's the adopted model of representation. Israel has it, New Zealand has it. There have been clamor to introduce it in America, as well as the United States of America and Britain. It's because you may have interests that needs to be represented which are not geographical in nature. For example, if we pick Wajakoya's quest to legalize bang, you may find that there are 1 million Kenyans who will wish that bang is actually legalized for medicinal use. But they are spread all over the country. They can never elect a champion from their small respective constituencies. But if you had a non-geographical seat, so you're a political party that advocates, for example, the use of medicinal marijuana, then these 1 million people from wherever they are, even if they're in Turkana, they're in Kisumu, they're in Eldoret, they're in Mombasa, they're in Kiambu, they're in Nakuru, they're in Nairobi. When they go all to vote and they vote for their party, and the percentage of this vote that party gets, that party will qualify to nominate somebody to the legislative body. The Greens party in Germany, for example, it's one of the most influential parties in Europe. But the Greens party has never gotten more than 10% of the parliamentary vote, the national vote. But because of the Green agenda and the fact that they've been able to get seats from the party list system, they have support across the country that cannot fit into one constituency. Their supporters who are spread all over Germany are able to vote for them as a political party, and then they qualify to nominate members to the Bundestag. And that has given them a platform, that has made them a very influential political party, that even when it comes to forming coalitions, the Green Party has always had a presence in government because you must negotiate with them, and the Green agenda forms part of the coalition negotiations that you have with them. So that was my dissertation in undergrad. Okay. Then when I did my LLM, before my LLM, I happened to qualify for a French government fellowship where they took me to École Nationale d'Administration in Paris. That is the School of National Administration. All the French presidents are alumnus of that school. And the training was on a fellowship on decentralization. That time we had just passed our new constitution, and we were trying to unpack the devolution as a concept. So I was privileged to be part of a cohort which the French government took just to help understand decentralization and how it works. An intensive program for which I'm grateful to them. It made me understand, earlier than most Kenyans, how the devolved system of governments can work and even how to make it better. I did my LLM in 2014 at University of Nairobi. It was on public law and governance. My dissertation was on scrutiny and recount of votes. You're seeing a continuous trend and interest in governance, and with specific emphasis on electoral processes. I discussed about how we can use scrutiny and recount as means of enhancing electoral justice in Kenya. So that is Willis on the academic angle. On the professional limb, when I finished my tour of duty with the ISA, I went into private practice. And I specialize largely on human rights and public law, governance issues. Most of the cases that I do in my law firm are what would qualify to be called as public interest cases. Okay. And I've been able to work with many civil society organizations, specifically that if I was to mention Muslims for Human Rights in particular, we've worked very closely to litigate so many cases that have helped expand the democratic space and the human rights practice in this country. Inform Action, headed by Maina Kiai. Muri is headed by LF Khalifa, who is the chairman. Inform Action, headed by Maina Kiai, has also been a very key strategic partner in my work. I've worked with Africa, Willis Otieno. Again, people who have been pushing for an expanded democratic space. Beyond that, in 2016, I was honored again to be a legal advisor to the Decentralization Commission that was set up in Mozambique after the peace process between Frelimo and Renamo. They ended up having what they were calling two commissions. One, the Militarization Commission. The other one was a Decentralization Commission. Because again, it was very important for them that they come up with a system that can accommodate competing political interests at national and local levels. So I was one of the legal advisors to the Decentralization Commission, appointed by the President of Mozambique, His Excellency President Nyusi. Again, gave me good exposure and experience in just unpacking how governance work. The penultimate of that process was a successful signing of a peace agreement, and they held a peaceful election. The last general election they held, and they're having another election next year. So that was the crux of that assignment. Then in 2017, I was honored to meet Jimmy Wanjigi, who introduced me to Raila Odinga. And it's interesting that in the first meeting that I had with Mr. Wanjigi at ABC, the person introduced us. In 2 minutes' time, we were talking like we are long lost friends, and the person who was introducing us was the stranger in the meeting. And just unpacking issues of governance, elections, transparency of elections processes. He just told me, Willis, you're our campaign manager.
Oh.
That time I had not even met Raila Odinga. I mean, we had not been formally introduced. You're our campaign manager for these elections. He told me, let's meet Raila on Saturday. So that Saturday we go early in the morning, 7 o'clock. And in fact, maybe I should say this. At that time I was working for ODM political party. I was the chairman of the ODM Appeals Tribunal, dealing with all the nomination disputes that were arising from the 2017 party primaries. But I'd never met Raila Odinga. The appointment had been given to me from the Secretariat and the NEC. I think it is Ms. Odurongwen and Professor Adam Solo, who had proposed my name. I had been working with them on some issues. They proposed my name, and the NEC appointed me to that very influential position. So in the process of doing this appeals process, dispute resolution process for the party, I meet Mr. Wanjigi, who decides, you are the right comportment, you can be a campaign manager. I go and meet Raila for the first time now formally. And in 5 minutes, our chemistry was right. The energy between us was right.
How was it meeting him for the first time?
That was the first one-on-one, let me call it that. Raila has a presence, and he listens. He has, you feel an aura of comfort around him, someone who is at peace with himself. My first impression of him was that he didn't strike me as someone who was insecure with himself, that would make you feel uncomfortable. His presence makes you feel very comfortable around him, and to be able to freely express yourself and to engage, converse. And I believe that is what made me even be able to, in that first 5 minutes of our meeting, he had confirmed to Mr. Wanjigi that this is actually our campaign manager, because I was very comfortable around him. I didn't feel any pressure. He didn't make me feel any pressure. And that is one quality that I see in him and I see in Mr. Wanjigi. Despite their stature, they are people who are comfortable with themselves. And when you have an idea and they engage you as a person, they don't treat you as here and you're here. No. It's more of a conversational engagement. of respect coming more actually from them down to you. When you get that from somebody who is senior, it gives you the latitude to comfortably speak up and express yourself to them. So that was my last experience, was with them. I did the 2017 elections. The penultimate of it again for me was 30th January 2018, when we successfully held the people's president swearing in at Uhuru Park. And I remember that was a very interesting, tense moment. I was tasked with the responsibility of carrying the Bible and drafting the oath.
Not Miguna.
No, because I was the oath administrator.
Oh, yeah.
But I was drafting the oath and I was carrying the Bible to make sure that they are duly delivered to the general himself. Which when I arrived at Uhuru Park, Miguna was there before me. Miguna was there very early. So I went there, I arrived at around midday, or just slightly before midday. Miguna had already, the place was packed and Miguna was sitting right the set of everything. TJ Kajuang in his CJ regalia right next to him. So I delivered the Bible and the oath to the administrator. And took a vantage position to witness what to me was a very historic moment, because for the first time the people of Kenya had stood up to ensure that the electoral vote, their voice, was going to be heard, not just in the villages but in the center of the city. So Uhuru Park is less than 2 kilometers from State House. That was the ultimate act of defiance to electoral theft, that we are going to administer a people's oath right in the middle of the city, the most strategic and most accessible, easily accessible venue, the most open public forum, public platform within the city. So that was, I was very excited that day, that we had actually achieved and actualized the people's voice through the administration of that oath. Beyond that, again, in this last election cycle, in between, I've also been doing my private practice, supporting elections in different countries across the continent and dispute processes in Nigeria, Botswana, and Malawi, South Africa. I've been doing also my private legal practice. Then in 2022, I was again honored to be invited by Mr. Wanjigi to be his running mate in the elections. Unfortunately, the powers that be feared our ticket. We were the most fearless ticket. And remember, we used to call ourselves, we are Team Fearless. We feared nobody. They managed to manufacture conked up reasons to make sure that we don't get to the ballot. But that is what under the bridge. The people of Kenya will one day have an opportunity to interrogate our policies and what we stand for. And I believe Jimmy Wanjigi has the best ideas. Our campaign had the best ideas for this economy. If you look at Azimio and Kenya Kwanza manifestos, the overriding theme was about distribution. Each of them saying how I will give you, one side saying I will give you 6,000 shillings every month. Another one said I will give Mama Mboga 50 billion. Distributive. Our economic promise to the people of Kenya was production. We were running on a platform on how to bake a bigger cake, allowing the individual, using his best efforts, to achieve his greatest potential. How do we open up new markets? How do we bridge relations across the continent? For example, Kenya signed the African Free Trade Agreement, AFTA. What are the opportunities in AFTA for the Kenyan vegetable vendor? Are we able to land our vegetable produce in the Lagos market every morning? How much will we earn as revenue if we were to do that? Because we take tomatoes to Mirikiti every morning. In the morning, a kg goes for 200 shillings. At midday, the same kg of tomatoes goes for 50, 60 shillings. Why? Because the market is almost closing. The goods are perishable. They're now disposing of them. Almost waste. But if, for example, in West Africa, Nigeria, they are importing most of their, it's a ready market, 15 million plus residents, importing the bulk of the vegetables from Europe and the Americas. We just use the abstract trade agreement to get landing rights of our vegetables to that market. So that these women who are taking their vegetables to Mirikiti, some of them can always detour to Wilson Airport or JKIA. You have a charter flight every morning, landing vegetables in the Lagos market. For example, what will that mean to our people? That is, you're empowering that Mama Mboga by opening up new opportunities for her without giving her 50 billion and not specifying how it's going to be used. Okay? That's why we are about production. And remember, if you are able to, for example, land those rights, the entire value chain for those vegetables, those who will be packing, you're creating jobs for packers, the vegetable packers. You're creating jobs for transport. You're creating jobs for people in the aviation sector. So it is not just one person who is empowered. You are producing for many in that value chain until the goods land in Lagos. So that is the different approach that we had. And that is why we could not join any of these camps during the campaign, because their policies, their manifestos were anchored on a distributive agenda, while us, we believed on a production agenda. How do we make our people to produce more? How do we bake a bigger cake? So for them, they believe the cake is there. Uhuru's problem was only how to cut it. Whereas he's cutting this much and giving one group, then they will expand the cutting to give to others. As we believe this cake is too small, let's bake a bigger cake for the country.
Do you agree that your belief in what was appealing to Kenyans were different?
It is not that what was appealing to Kenyans were different. No. We never had, in fact, the few occasions that we went out to campaign, I can assure you that the kind of reception that we were receiving, even if you go to media houses,
yes,
look at the engagements that whenever Mr. Wanjigi appeared on TV to do his interviews and compared even to the other two, he was getting very good positive review and engagements. So the advantage they had was that they had campaigned longer. They had been seasoned politicians, so they had more national attention. But the few times that we had access to media, you could see the kind of engagements that we were having. But then ultimately, of course, as you say, the sweetness of a pudding is in the testing. We could have tested that theory on the election day, and I believe we will have upset what was presented as a two-horse race to the people of Kenya. But of course, by the previous administration blocking our electoral quest, we were not able to test how popular or unpopular we were with the people of Kenya. No scientific test.
Okay, what modality did Wanjigi use to pick you as the running mate? Because I'm sure Wanjigi must have had, some long friends with whom he had been friendly, people with whom he had been friends for a long time, and who were close to him more than you. Why did Wanjigi? This is a question that I think should be directed to him, but I think you can also answer. Why did he choose Willis Otieno?
I believe it was we are in sync ideologically. It's about what we believe in. I understand his passion about baking a bigger cake and creating a production economy, and that is something that I hold so dear. Our commitment to the quest for the rule of law is something that we share deeply. Our belief in democratic, transparent elections, our belief in human rights. So we have so many shared beliefs, and in the last 5+ years that we've closely worked together, he's come to understand me more and more. Remember, in 2010, maybe I should take you back, there was an international warrant of arrest issued against al-Bashir.
Yes.
And al-Bashir was coming to Kenya. That time I was working at ICJ. I was barely 2 years in practice. And I went to the airport with Wilfred Nderitu, senior counsel. George Kegoro was the ED of ICJ at the time. And we went to domesticate that ICC warrant of arrest against al-Bashir. And we were fearlessly saying we want to arrest that man if he lands into this country. Because he had come to Kenya for the inauguration of the new constitution. And history replays itself in very interesting ways. Because 10 years later, after getting the warrant of arrest against al-Bashir, in 2021, I'm acting for Wanjigi. And I have a court order directed that George Kinoti DCI to return illegally confiscated firearms. And he refuses to return them. Disobedience of court orders without, and he's given a lot of time, almost over a year. And I go to court and I get a warrant of arrest. I commit him to jail. I convict him and commit him to jail for 4 months. So you can see, he is seeing my zeal for justice, my zeal for human rights, democracy. He's seen that I work with vulnerable communities, those who are victims of an unjust political and criminal justice system. And these are things that he also holds in deep in his heart. So we are what I can call, we are intellectual and ideological soulmates. It is such a natural connection between Mr. Wanjigi and myself. In fact, sometimes my wife asks me that you people talk every day. Start talking from 2 p.m. to, you can meet from 2 p.m. to midnight. What are you saying that doesn't end? The next day you're saying the same thing. I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. In fact, I don't even remember what we discussed. Because when you have somebody that you have a connection and you feel that intellectually you are espousing the same ideals and you have same passion and zeal to bring positive change to not just Kenyans, but to the African man. So thus we believe that it's time for the black man to occupy his rightful place in the Committee of Nations. Our quest to lead Kenya is not just for Kenya to prosper. It's for the black man wherever he is, across the world, to prosper. Right? Tied to what I was telling you about our production agenda. We believe Africa alone, we are a market of sub-Saharan Africa, 1.2 billion people. That's a market. How are we able to expand and get this market? How can we trade? When can Africa start trading with itself? We produce and consume whatever we are able to produce. The more we trade with ourselves, the more the continent will grow. And COVID taught us something. Remember, it reached a point where the Western countries were producing vaccines and hoarding them. Africa was the last continent to receive vaccines. So we were on our own. That should have been a wake-up call to the continent that wait, look here. At the end of it all, if there is an Armageddon, a catastrophe that comes to this world, you're the last people. No one will care about you. So we must start thinking as the black people of this continent. How can we start thinking of how to build our own systems, build our own industries, trade with ourselves, build our own capacities, that if anything were to happen, we have the basic infrastructure to defend ourselves, basic infrastructures to provide the medicines that are required. China has a population of almost 2.5 billion plus. The growth of China started by the ability of China to produce and consume what it was producing. Then once they moved to surplus production, they were able to now expand across the globe as an economic powerhouse. Look at China today. Why can't we have the same for Africa? So these are the deep things that we discuss. And it is, I'm telling you, it's a deep commitment that disturbs me every single day, that you walk out on the street and you're seeing an innocent, beautiful child condemned to poverty, not for anything, but just by the place where she was born. How can that be a fair society in this world? That you were actually born disadvantaged just by birth, which you don't choose. Nobody chooses where they are born, but you're disadvantaged at birth. and the system is rigged against you at birth. When you are born in that hospital, the health workers were on strike because they were not paid. There were no medicines on that day. You are not able to get the best quality care, health care for a child. You go home as a child, you're taken home by your parents as a child. You suffer malnutrition because your parents are not earning enough. A wage bill that will guarantee them a life of dignity. So this child suffers from malnutrition. This child goes to school. He's not getting quality education because the teacher is poorly paid. The child is hungry, he's not feeding at home. So he spends half the time in class not concentrating. That child proceeds to university. Again, the same challenges that he was facing in childhood. Lecturers are not well paid. There is no investment in research that will enhance the knowledge and capacity and the potential of this child. This child matures to the workforce. He's graduated. He's not able to get a job that commensurate with his qualification. So you are finding a graduate, and this is very sad. I don't have an issue with border borders, but border border is a default setting because the system has failed to create sufficient jobs to our qualified young people that they are now forced to just live for a day. So you grab a motorbike, you find whatever you can, and the cycle continues because this person, a graduate, qualified graduate, doctor, lawyer, teacher, journalist, physician, is now reduced to riding a border and has a family. So you're seeing a continuous cycle of poverty because that person's child also will go through the same. And that disturbs me a lot. That if we really want to grow as a country, we must be able to give our people a life of dignity. What is dignity? Dignity is the ability to live as a human being. That is all that we're asking for. And the leadership of our country has failed to guarantee that. We've tested these systems for the last 60 years. Look where we are. It's more of the same. So in our campaign, we were looking at a different approach to politics. A business approach to politics that enthuses human rights, democracy, and social justice as the core that influences and informs decision-making processes. That I will be happier if I woke up today and I told you that the middle class in Kenya, I will be happy. Today, if I told you, do you know how many Kenyans earn 100,000 shillings plus? It's only 80,000 Kenyans. 80,000 Kenyans only. Do you know how many Kenyans have mortgages? 25,000. 25,000 mortgages offered by banks there. 25,000 only.
Okay.
So there's no middle class in this country. Right? We are one disease away from poverty, even those who claim to be middle class, because the healthcare system has collapsed. So these are things that are so dear to me that sometimes I cry. It is so painful that why should a white man live a life of dignity? Because they've created working political systems, and ours are not working. And the black man, African people, we are largely very healthy. If you go to NHIF, to hospitals, of the almost 70 billion Kenya shillings NHIF collect, do you know how much of that goes to public hospitals? Less than 18%. The bulk of it goes to private health care workers, service providers. Sorry. Why can't we just fund our public health system and monitor, follow up? We are able to fund our health, invest in primary health care, preventive medicine. Preventive health care should be the backbone so that you are able to deal with infections at the primary level before they escalate. You are able to deal with early diagnostic of diseases before they mutate into uncontrollable. Because even cancers can be controlled if detected early. The only major problem most people with cancer face is the late detection, diagnostic. So why can't we invest in that kind of health system? Record management. I mean, I can go on and on about the things we talk about, and we keep discussing, and we're like, we need to change this country for it to grow. We want the Kenyan man and the black man in particular to live the same life that a white man in Europe lives.
So Willis, did you ever think that you will one day be a politician?
When I was in Moi University, at some point in our campus, I was the Assistant Secretary General of the Students' Union.
Oh.
Then, when I wanted to run for Secretary General, the University Senate had to amend the rules. And the first time rules were being amended to target an individual. And the rules were that if you have served as an official of the students' governing body, governing council, you cannot serve for a second term. You're saying that is well in order, but that rule should apply from the date it was passed. They said no, it applies retrospectively. Saying no, laws apply prospectively from the day of enactment going forward. So this is my fresh term. They said no, you have been there before. So I'd seen myself as, maybe in my early university days as a political animal, and we were my classmates will say I was very political, but I don't think I was very political. But post-university, I didn't see myself as, at the time, I thought maybe I could just make my contribution to our society by offering using law as a tool to bring positive change to the society. But after my experiences of 2017, I realized that we cannot just sit back and watch and leave it to others to make the change. You must get into the mud and fight from within and bring this change. Because you may end up pushing people who don't believe in the same ideas, who maybe what was the driving force. And they'll not be able to do it as you hope it should be done. And ultimately, the country is in transition. And we need as many young people as possible who have ideas, who have the commitment, and who have the zeal to fight for the country and the black man, to present themselves and take up leadership positions for the service of man. Because God commands us that whatever we do it for the service of man and to honor His grace. We do it to serve. We serve our Lord using the skills and talent that He has given us. We don't pursue leadership for self-gratification. You do that, you'll be cast. When you pursue leadership, you are leading. You are not doing it. You should be selfless at that time. You are doing it to serve humanity and to serve God's purpose for humanity on earth. So I see myself now as professing, I'm an Anglican by faith, professing the need now to serve humanity for the glory of God. That is why now I'm very comfortable in the little political space that I occupy. We hope with the next election we'll expand a larger political space through which we'll be able to espouse and implement the great ideas that we have for the people of Kenya and the African people. From West Africa to East Africa, South Africa to North Africa, this continent must rise and must occupy its rightful place. We are a sleeping economic powerhouse as a continent. 1.3 billion people. We trade with ourselves, things will change. I saw yesterday the Equity CEO was inviting Elon Musk to set up a coltan factory in DRC to produce his electric cars in DRC instead of exporting the coltan all the way to the United States of America. I was like, you see, we are still asking others. The continent should be able to produce it. Let us now, we have the African man has the innovation. We have the ideas, they have the brains. If we come together, we have the capital that can do it. Look at UK now. Who is the Lord Chancellor in charge of the Exchequer? A black man from Ghana. Running now the most sophisticated and stable financial market in Europe. From Ghana. So we must start finding ways in which we can do these things in the continent. This continent will be great. Well, remember when you look back, even the greatest developments in the world that have stood the test of time. Those pyramids in Giza, in Egypt, in Sudan, the pyramids, stood the test of time, very ancient developments. Those were built by black people. The richest man that ever lived on earth, you know who he was? That ever lived on earth from back in the day to date, the richest man that ever lived, Mansa Musa. Black man from Mali. At the height of his wealth, Mansa Musa did a pilgrimage from Mali to Mecca. You know how many people were part of that pilgrimage? 60,000 people. He was moving in a pilgrimage back in the day. 60,000 people. That's a whole city moving. He's feeding them. And he's giving gifts in every city he came across. It was the most lavish, the most expensive pilgrimage ever undertaken. Mansa Musa was a black man. So greatness is in us. We've just not lived to our full potential because of bad politics. That is going to change in our administration.
Okay. So, Willis, you are among the, common faces that we saw in the Supreme Court during the presidential petition hearing.
Yes.
How did you receive the judgment?
First, I must say that the Supreme Court used intemperate language. That took me a bit aback. I'd always known the Supreme Court to be a very conservative court in terms of its language.
Yes.
But the use of intemperate language, even if they're going to dismiss the petition, it was not the first petition to be dismissed in this country. And I believe it's not the last to be dismissed. But to use intemperate language to describe the parties and the kind of evidence which they presented, that took me aback. I felt that was a bit of judicial overreach and almost like trying to scare Kenyans from filing petitions. I mean, it's part of our democracy to question any process. And even if you believe somebody's case is worthless, it is right to question. Let that accountability process, the judicial process, lead him to see how right or how wrong he was. And nobody should be faulted for pursuing a judicial process or be abused, more so from the arbiter, if they find that the petition is not merited. I mean, it was not about personal feelings. Just give the person his day in court and listen to him and render a verdict with utmost respect. Because remember what I said, you seek leadership to serve humanity in honor of God. So when the Supreme Court uses intemperate language, are they serving humanity in honor of God? Will God use that kind of language, hot air, wild goose chase? Threats. I mean, that took me a bit aback. So that to an extent, I've not even been able to logically analyze the reasoning behind because even if I look at the reasoned judgment, I don't see anything that warranted the use of such intemperate language by the apex court in the Republic. That was, to me, that was the highlight of the entire petition. That after all those arguments, after all those documents, and even consider the timelines within which parties had to collect evidence and present their cases and the case to be heard, it was onerous. You don't reduce it to, because the judgment is the outcome of all that work, all that hard work, all that review. it's reduced to the 133-page judgment that they wrote. Hot air, wild goose chase is a summary. No. At least you must appreciate that people wanted to hear more, and they should have used more accommodative language and expressions, even if they are going to dismiss the petition. That was my take of that case.
Do you think Azimio had a weak case?
I cannot say so. Having been a petitioner's lawyer in the case itself, because there are some cross-cutting issues between the Azimio petition and our petition. The petitioners had a very strong case. And in fact, even the Supreme Court, ultimately, if you ask the Supreme Court the question, which is the agency that is responsible for tallying and the verification of election results, the Supreme Court in the judgment says IEBC and not the chairperson. That's what they say. But then they say IEBC tallied and verified the results of the elections. Then they go further and say, before them, you have 4 commissioners of IEBC saying we did not verify and tally all the results. And one lingering question that will continue in my mind is the question which was asked by the Chief Justice. What happened? Why did the public announcement of the results stop in the night? And that may not have led to what was described before as the piki, ponki games to decide the winner. I'm waiting for the answer to that question. The Chief Justice has not gotten the answer herself. It was not given. Why did the open announcement of the votes that have been tallied and verified stopped? Why was it stopped?
Do you think it was intentionally swept under the carpet?
Of course. They ignored it. They asked it. You know, once a court asks a question, that court has a responsibility to make sure that the question is answered. And whichever way it is answered, it should even record it in the judgment. Yes. The answer that was given, and if it believes that answer. It is not just hot air to ask a question by a judge. A question asked by a judge is a very important question. Actually, I normally pay in my practice, I pay more attention to the questions judges ask me than even what is said by the other side. Because for a judge to ask you a question, it means that she has or he has seen something that will guide them in arriving at a decision. Yes.
So now we have Ruto got sworn in and he's serving. I don't know if this is a question I should ask you, but do you think we should give him, Kenya that is, should give him the chance to see if he'll be able to serve well and, make sure that all the promises that he had pledged are going to...
The chance, he has been given the chance. What do you mean by we should give him? We have given him. I mean, he has been sworn into office. Yes. So he has been given. So what more chance will he need to be given? He wants people to sing on the streets, Nyayo? No. He has been given the chances in office. He has his parliamentary leadership. He has his cabinet nominees. So he has been given the chance. What Kenyans need to do going forward is to hold him to account. Not to keep quiet, because sometimes people say, give the government a chance to work, to mean keep quiet, don't question, don't criticize. No. The provisions of the Constitution are still working. Transparency, accountability are still part of our governance. And you start demanding of them now, not later. So the chance has been given. What needs to happen now is making sure that there is transparency and accountability as he implements his mandate and promise to people of Kenya. In fact, I would be sad if Kenyans kept quiet, because then you are not holding your leaders accountable. Then later on you start complaining. You need to hold your leaders accountable from day one in office, because they may go off tangent, and bringing them back into check may be a problem. So we need to hold them to account from day one. From day one, you check, question, you said this, have you done it? You promised this, have you done it? What, this? That should happen. Kenya should not wait. The chance has been given. It's now time to implement.
Now, what's the way forward for Wanjigi, maybe Wanjigi and Willis?
Jim Willie ticket is the ticket that will liberate the people of Kenya. We are Safina. You remember in the story of the Bible, Noah's Ark?
Yes.
When the people of Israel had gone against the word of God, and there was great iniquity in the nation, the Lord sent floods, and he asked Noah to build an ark. And Noah begged people, let's build this ark together. I've been told by God to build an ark. The floods are coming. Let's build an ark. And they were laughing at him that this Noah is a very mad man. Which ark is he talking about? The way it is dry here. Which floods? This land of ours, where will floods come from even? We are so far. We are in raised territory. We have high mountain. This man is a madman. Noah kept building his ark. Wood by wood, nail by nail, until he finished it. Then Noah, still, out of his love for humanity, told them, now let's go, come enter the ark. People were laughing. It started raining. They were celebrating the rains have finally come. Noah celebrated, these are floods are coming, enter. They refused. Kenya is exactly at the moment where Noah was in biblical times. The things I've just enumerated to you, the economic problems that Kenyans are facing, the iniquities in our republic, calls for salvation. We cannot apply the same modules that have led us to these problems to solve the same problems. The solution to our economic challenges, our governance challenges, lie in entering the Noah's Ark, Safina. Get into Safina. Let us change our governance. Let us change the trajectory of our nation. Because look at, I always say, Jubilee, Kenya Kwanza, Azimio, they are all part of Jubilee. In one way or another. They are part of the problems. How do you expect them to solve? They're not. But Safina, we are fresh. We are fearless. We are the ones who've been sent by God. He told us to build an ark in honor of his name and to bring the people of Kenya and the African man to the ark, symbolically, so that we can rescue ourselves from this economic dragon that is swallowing our people. So, Safina is the way to go. Okay. Jimmy Wanjigi is the steward of the vessel. I am his able captain, deputy captain, assisting him to steer the vessel onto Mount Ararat, that mountain which God had created where the ark will land, yes, where the people will be saved, where the Kenyan people were going deep economic problems. Do you know how many Kenyans are unemployed? Do you know, if you look at the statistics of unemployed youth in this country, 5 million youths are unemployed. 5 million. Do you know what that means? I shake. What does unemployment mean when you say somebody is unemployed? Do you know what it means? This man is not guaranteed of food. Food, the basic food, 3 meals a day is not guaranteed. This man cannot access health care. This man cannot access decent housing. Dignity is deprived of a man or that woman, for that matter, when they are unemployed. 5 million Kenyan youth are unemployed. Even if they're employed, they're earning less than $1 a day. 5 million. They're deprived of dignity. And the cost of living keeps going up. Inflation is kicking in. Where will our help come? Our help will come from Safina.
Okay.
Where do we land on Mount Ararat?
Willis, maybe yes, as I end, and maybe the third last or second last question.
Yes.
In your own opinion, what do you think led to the fallout between Wanjigi and Raila?
I may not be the best person to answer that question. I don't think there was
in your opinion.
I don't think there was a fallout. I think there was just different approaches. Because I believe Wanjigi and Raila, both of them they believe in social justice. Ideologically, they are in sync. So maybe it was just a difference in approach on how to pursue what is their ideological belief. But I don't think there was a big fallout that you can say, you can call it a fallout. So it's more of a difference in approach on how do we achieve this.
So I think we are not wrong to say that probably they may make up again.
Of course, in politics everything is possible. Politics is the art of the impossible becoming possible. So there are no, as I've told you, ideologically they are in sync. They all believe in social justice. Their point of departure is, for example, in Raila says distribute 6,000, Wanjigi says produce more. But their interest, they all believe in social justice. That is why, if you note, Jimmy has only been in 2 political parties in his entire life. ODM and Safina. And the first party he joined was ODM. The first person he came out to publicly support politically, even though he had supported others before, background. To work with a political journey, it was Raila.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are deep histories between those two that I'm not even worthy of tying their shoelaces to talk about their shared political history and journey together. I was maybe in my diapers when they were starting their political journeys. That will be left to the two of them to speak. But I can say there's open admiration and respect between the two gentlemen.
Okay.
Yes.
How is Mimi? Is she Mimi your niece?
Mimi, my niece is fine. She goes to school somewhere in Karen.
Okay, in Karen.
In Karen. So okay. Mimi teaches me nursery rhymes. And one of the most popular ones she taught me, and was very relevant to my submissions in court.
Yes.
Was that when you ask her to choose, take her to choose a toy. But let's choose a toy. Only one. And you give her 2 or 3. It says, piki, ponki, paka melodies. Go! This one! And that is what Chebukati did to us in 2022 presidential elections. Because he called Raila Odinga. He called him in the morning. He called William Ruto in the morning.
Yes.
Come to Bomas at 3 o'clock. He called them. We did not know why he was calling them, because the open tallying and announcement of the results had stopped. So why was he calling both of them? And remember, this is not the first time we've held a presidential election in this country. And normally, even Ahmed Isaac in 2013, he did this open tallying and announcement of results. Up to the time when he was the threshold, Uhuru was crossing the threshold, Uhuru was not at Bomas. The announcement was made in his absence. When he passed the threshold, it was there, everyone saw. In 2017, when Uhuru crossed the threshold, he was in Gatundu. You remember?
Yes.
Then he drove. He had passed the threshold, but this time, he calls both of them. We have not seen the open tallying and display. So what formula was he going to use, if not piki, ponki, paka melodies, go? Because the one that we know had failed. It had collapsed in the morning. It was not taking place. So Raila was going there believing he's going to announce me. Ruto was going there believing he's going to announce me. So if the two gentlemen appeared before him, they can easily appear before him, the two gentlemen. They could have gone, both of them. Then what do we do? Piki, ponki, paka melodies, go.
Okay.
And your president, voila, it lands on you. That is what he was doing.
How did Mimi react to this, piki game that?
I told her to shoot me a video. Mimi is still a minor, she's still a child. She's not on social media, so she doesn't know. So when we were showing a picture, they are singing my song. Who gave them my song? Uncle Willis. Yes, Uncle Willis is singing my song in court. Uncle Willis, that is you. You're singing it without me. Yeah.
Okay, Willis, it's been great pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for allowing us to your space and getting to know you better.
Thank you very
It
much.
was a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.
Dickens Ngicho, Nation Digital.